The People's Market is pleased to be associated with the movement that empowers.
A very warm welcome to my community, the movement that empowers. I'm Sherwood McCaskey. As always, I'm pleased that you have joined us. Now, this movement is well known for its commitment to serving the underserved and marginalized members of our communities, those who ordinarily may have been excluded from the traditional banking system due to low incomes, lack of credit history, and other factors. Over the years, this has helped to promote financial inclusion of our community members and reduce their reliance on other forms of lending.
So I want to say, therefore, that even though we do not have an indigenous bank today, that is gone since 1962, our Barbados National Bank has now been sold. Even though we do not have an indigenous bank, we have a credit union system that is strong, that is vibrant, and many people are members of the credit union system. Many people got their first car through the credit unions, their land, their house, etc. And the credit unions have been doing a fantastic job.
As a young person, I was very ambitious about getting stuff done. And I went to the bank. I was a proofreader. My first job was a proofreader at the Advocate. And it was owned by Lord Thompson, who was a major shareholder in Royal Bank. And my salary was going to Royal Bank. I wanted to borrow $3,000 to renovate a property that my grandfather had given me. So I went to the bank. Really? And then the woman said, $3,000? If you can get somebody to put $10,000 on their account and not touch it till you pay back $3,000, I will lend you. I said, I asked you for $3. I said, I might be young, but I'm not foolish. You're asking me to oversubscribe. You didn't ask me to put $3. You didn't ask me to put $6. You didn't even ask me to put $9, baby, $10. I said, if anybody that I could borrow $3,000 from, I would not be here in your office. And she said, well, the only way you get the loan is if you get your father to come and sign for you. I wanted a loan, so I had to get my father to sign for me. But you can see how difficult it was back then for this complexion to get a simple loan. My salary was going to the bank. One of the company I work for is a part owner of the same Royal Bank. It was Royal Bank. So I said to myself, well, okay. But I got through, thankfully. But that when Peter spoke to me about the credit union, that was my mind. I realized that we have to create a space, an opportunity, and finance for persons who want to get ahead in life. All we want to do is to let people achieve the financial goals with reasonable financing. We don't want to make a lot of profit off people. If we make a profit, it's because we operate efficiently. And then that money is then spread out among the membership back into their hands again. So I had no qualms when he told me, says that let us go. Let's go. And then here we are, 40 years afterwards.
Yes, sir. It was in 1983. I remember the unemployment was about 15%. In terms of the economy, tourism led along with agriculture, and the offshore banking was just coming into its own. There were not a lot of loans for entrepreneurs back then. So if you wanted a loan, like Vincent said, you had to go through a lot of hoops to get money. The credit union movement, I remember reading a central bank report, suggested that the credit unions were making a significant impact to the growth of the economy at that point in time. The largest one was public workers, and then you have lots of small little ones. The emergence of the City of Bridgetown, along with the Barbados Workers Union and a number of others around that time, helped to provide additional avenues for persons to access loans, not only for their own houses, but people had business ideas and that type of thing. And the thing about it is too, the loan repayment was attractive, more attractive than the banks. You paid on the reducing balance. The interest rate was on the reducing balance. And I think 1% on the reducing balance. 1%. You could not beat that. Since then, once the banks realized that we were doing that, they now introduced that same thing, because they realized that there was a lot of competition.
Yes.
And they also had, because we had a personal touch, banks then they also introduced personal bankers. And they went in, remember when some went into the community, even knocking on doors, because they realized that the credit unions had penetrated a target population that they had not yet focused on.
I would have gotten a loan from the credit union to help me purchase equipment and so on. They always wanted a shop. I was practicing the barbecue thing for a few years, having friends come over. We just have barbecues at home. We are a barbecue business. We sell smoked meats. We located Charnox near the airport, right on the highway. We have been open since March 2019. Going strong. To be honest, it was quite easy as compared to the traditional bank. I just sent in the information, and it didn't take very long for me to get the funds. I believe I would have gotten probably could be about $50,000 or $60,000 to start. I bought a truck, a pickup truck with that, and then the equipment and so on to get the business started. Currently, we have 4 people working with us, and we are looking to expand soon.
But I remember a story where we attracted a lot of small business people, and there was a guy who operated in front of COB who sold nuts.
Yeah.
And every day he would come in and he would deposit lots of coins to COB every day, right? And there are lots of stories like that. Small entrepreneurs bring their money to COB because in the end they knew that they could get a loan for a house or to expand the business. So there are lots of entrepreneurs that we would have assisted.
But that same guy that used to do the nuts eventually opened a store in Swan Street selling vegetables and fruits. So he moved from just going around to he was able to rent a space on Swan Street and had a thriving vegetable and fruit business going. That is the kind of thing that we are proud of, because as we say that we measure success one member at a time. So I remember somebody calling my office and asking me, what is the quota for cars? At that time, that was like strange to me. Quotas for cars, what's that? I said, sir, he's from the bank. I said, but we don't have quotas for cars. If our members qualify for the loan, what they want to do with the money is up to them. If they want to go and buy a car, that is up to them. But we don't have a quota saying that we can only lend X amount of money for cars. That is unfair. That is unfair. That's not a level playing field, sir. We are a non-profit, not-for-profit organization. Yours profit-driven. We just want to make sure that the person get what they want through reasonable financing. So sorry if ICB are not under the central bank. At that time we weren't. So we don't have to say, well, we have to spend X amount of money in cars and that's it. Once the person qualifies, they got the loan, and what they do with the money is entirely up to them.
Yeah, in terms of loans, because we want to throw the notes out there, we indicated that we're not going to keep you a whole month before you get the loan. We made sure that we got people to get the loans urgently, quickly, sometimes within a matter of days, you know. But you're right about the business of access to funds, because in the old days, I mean, the banks would give you a long story as to why they can't help you, you know. But in terms of the credit unions, every time we had a meeting, we would be looking at ways in which we could help the persons. So it was a conscious desire to help. Let me put it that way. You know, we went out of our way to help the people who, as you might say, were the underprivileged people. So it was a conscious thing, very, very conscious. And the people who were having the credit committee and supervisory committee, they were also committed to making sure that people were able to do what they had to do.
Yes, and people, as I said, were able to get small loans to help repair the house, even to buy houses and that type of thing. We were involved in that and helped them to get facilities that would not have been easily, because in those days, in order to borrow money from a bank, you had to have security. In credit union, we didn't need no security. Sometimes if it was big, you would have to have a guarantor. One, the credit union, the other credit union would have to guarantee you. If it was small, we never thought about a guarantor or anything. But they were able to get small loans to help repair the houses, to help build houses, help repair the cars if they had one, and that type of thing they were able to do. It made life easier for them. And they made it make it possible for them to reach where they would not otherwise be able to reach. You know, them days you can walk in the bank and say you want to borrow a loan. They would call the police. But you could come to when you were a member of the credit union, you could get a loan from the credit union. And we helped one another. And we never ran out of money. No, people still, it grew in, it started getting big and doing things, and people got confidence in it and all that type of thing. And was able to raise the standard of life for many people.
So every day at that time, even now, every single transaction in a credit union has a story. But people don't know it, right? So there are many, many stories that you have to create love in the first place. This is what we're bringing. When you get involved in a credit union, we advise people, listen, you're not only saving money, you are creating an opportunity to build love. First and foremost, when you borrow, we don't take your savings to add to what you want to borrow for. We encourage you to maintain your savings, borrow what you want, create the asset that you're borrowing for, and your savings remain intact. So on the one hand, your savings continue to increase, and on the other hand, you have the assets still with you. So you're creating love. And if you continue in that vein, you're creating an increased standard of living for your people. This is a story of the credit union over the years. What we have done is to provide the opportunity for all Barbadians to improve their social standing as well as to create wealth. I remember there's a story of a young lady. I taught her at school, I think. And she came and said, listen, I want to buy a car, but I don't have the money. I said, all right, well, just start saving, whatever little you have. And she did. So within 3 months, she had about $2,000. And he said, listen, borrow $2,000. Use that savings as security. So in one fell swoop, she had $4,000 that she can use to purchase a car, or deposit to purchase a car. So this is the way in which we tend to help people, because most of us came into this world for anything.
Well, thankfully, history has shown that through the credit union movement, many of us have acquired something. Now, what about the progressive work of the League in building the movement and expanding communities?
So once the credit union began to make itself known in this new way, it gained popularity. Not only because of its savings, but also because of the number of programs that we implemented. At the Credit Union League itself, which was the national body, which was responsible for the overall development, that is when my work then started. Now you've gotten people interested. How can you get them more interested as well as to increase numbers? So we introduced a number of programs. First one was the creation of what we call a central finance facility, CFF. which was encouraging all credit unions, the same way you encourage your members to save, we encourage credit unions to pool.
Probably one of the most important vehicles that the league had, it was very successful, had for advancing the credit union movement in Barbados. The league at that time was known as the, in fact, not as known, it still is, like, even though it doesn't carry that role, but the league was regarded as the credit union for credit unions. The Central Fund Facility was able to mobilize funds. In other words, members would make contributions to the Central Fund Facility, and the credit unions were also, by law, able to deposit their reserves in the Central Fund Facility of the league. Now, that was a very important vehicle.
And when they started pooling, it meant that the individual credit unions would have access to a pool of funds that they can borrow on to increase their lending to their members. All the major credit unions that you know of today got their jump start from that pool. Everyone. Right? So without that initial access to additional financing, I don't think that it would have been so smooth for these credit unions to develop that rapidly. So that was the first one. And that enabled the Credit Union League to generate revenue because they couldn't pay me. They were seeking, I think they got some funding from the Caribbean Confederation of Credit Unions. So they were not generating any income on their own. So the other task I had was to ensure that the Credit Union League achieved the measure of what we call financial self-sufficiency. In other words, help the organization to make money. And that was not an easy task. So we had to be creative and create mechanisms that would do that. So the Central Fund Facility was like that. So once the credit union borrowed from me, of course, they'll have to pay interest on it. And that generated revenue for the league. So that went well and continued to grow till you recognize that most of the smaller credit unions at the time were awash with cash. So then I put it also in the Central Fund, which also enabled the expansion of that facility and the movement as a whole.
The work of the Central Fund Facility and how it was used to the benefit of members of the movement. Like any other thriving institution, you give consideration to similar facilities abroad. You study their operation carefully with the view to incorporating aspects that could be of tremendous benefit to members of your movement. In some instances, you seek their guidance if need be.
In the early days, I know the league had a pretty strong relationship with the cooperative movement in Canada, so that a lot of the structures that we have, we would have not necessarily birthed them from the egg, but we would have gotten the information from players who would have gone through the process before. So when obviously at that time in the early days, I think that was the days of like Oriel Doyle, Trevor Brown. There were some of the energies behind pushing the insurance company.
We came and found a situation where an American company, a cooperative American credit union company, was offering insurance services to the local movement. Insurance in the terms of what we call life savings and loan protection, what you might probably know as creditor life now. And the credit unions were paying, significant sums to that entity in the U.S. Of course, they couldn't take the money. It had to remain here in Barbados, but it was still owned by them. So in an effort to try to bring about some measure of control over that facility, we created what was called then a mutual benefits plan. This is where rather than pay the premium to the insurance company, pool the premium and pay the claims. So the claims were like if a person dies, the fund will pay off the loan from the credit union. And if there is in addition to that, the fund will also provide the family of the deceased with some additional funds as well. That was the creditor life part of it. So this was a program that was developed by credit unions in the USA, where they saw that, listen, why would the credit union have to benefit from the demise of a member and that they would have to pay back the loan? Allow the credit union to absorb the loss so that the family is a little better off, and then also pay something else to the family to keep them going. So that is how the insurance company copied that from the cooperative movement. So we recognize that since our movement was growing, and it was no more young people than old people, our claims ratio was exceptionally small. So it was very profitable. So after 4 years of this plan, it was so profitable that we had reserves in excess of $2 million. And that was the basis for the formation of the Cooperators General Insurance Company. So we were charged with the, but it was asking me because it was running the office, of trying, since we wanted to do that, you want to form an insurance company? Unheard of. In Barbados, you? I went to officials to find out what was the problem. And they say to me, that's unheard of. Go to, and I call a particular person's name, he will help you, which was an entrepreneur of different hue. And no, that didn't go down too well. So if you recognize how cooperatives work, we have an international network. So we wrote to the international body and asked them for assistance and advice as to how we can start this company. And immediately they identified 2 companies that will help us, that were cooperatives internationally. You ever have Nationwide Insurance? That is a cooperative. They sent down 2 of their executives to meet with us. And then there was Cooperators of Canada. They also sent their executives to meet with us to identify what we want. These guys went back and created a financing mechanism for the company. And for 2 years, they worked with the local Cooperators Insurance Company to get it going. We didn't have to pay a cent for them. This is how cooperatives work. Once you have a good idea that is helpful to the movement, the international bodies would come together and help you, which is what they did. So moving from a little fund, which is a benefit fund, into a full-fledged insurance entity. Very few people know about this history. Right? Even the officials at Corporation don't even know about it. Because if they knew, they would talk about it, but they can't. So they even took us as far as Japan to find reinsurance contracts for the company here. So they're really godfathering us. And that is something that we will never be able to repay. So we have a situation where we now develop the central fund facility to provide support to the credit unions. And then we were moving into insurance. And the intention was to influence the insurance rates to the extent that it would make it life easier for Barbadians to access insurance. How successful that was, I'm not sure, because I'm not familiar, I'm not a social company anymore. But that was the intention. And hopefully, hope that is still the same thing.
The league was the only shareholder in Corporate General, right? But I was able to get my board to come up with a formula. So the funds that credit unions had within the investment reserve became their money within the cooperators. So each credit union who had funds are now shareholders and cooperators.
The movement recognized that education is a fundamental human right and a cornerstone of personal and societal development, as it empowers individuals, drives economic growth, promotes social equality, and contributes to the overall well-being and progress of communities and, by extension, our island, Barbados. Recognizing the importance of education and ensuring its accessibility to all members of the movement is essential for a brighter and more equitable future. As a way of keeping members informed, the movement made good use of various forms of the media.
So, as the idea of the movement then became known and people recognized this as something good, so then we turned towards promotion. How can we promote this a bit more? So as usual, I would look for someone who is in particular area to assist. So I found a friend of mine who was involved when I was in Scouts at school, a guy by the name of Victor Norville. He was a public relations guy. And he sat down with me and developed a plan to put the movement at the National Front. First and foremost, we developed a relationship with the newspapers. And we got one or two columnists to write almost every week on credit union stories. Next stage, we developed a radio program, which was aired on CBC every week, hosted by credit union people. And that was another way in which it was promoted heavily. In fact, that was one of the most popular radio programs because when it actually finished, the lady who was the hostess, she couldn't take it on anymore, but she had to continue her studies. But it was rather popular, and people look forward to hearing it because it involved people. In fact, you know that. Once you talk stories about people, that is one of the main areas of interest, and how they move from a situation of, small or not being too well to a situation of being better off and improving. So the good stories does work, and it did work for the credit union movement quite well. So those things, and then we started our own newspaper magazine. So it was beginning to capture a lot of interest, and we call it cooperative vision, in an effort to demonstrate, look, we have a futuristic approach to what we're trying to do in the movement. And those created another opportunity to get the message out there. And that really showed that we can not only talk about finances, we can do it as well and present it in a way that it would cause people to look around.
The movement that empowers. I'm Sherwood McCaskey. Do join us again next week as we continue to tell the story of this special movement that empowers.
The People's Market is pleased to be associated with the movement that empowers.